How did the idea of race begin? So if race isn't biological, then where does it come from? Why is there racism? Why does racism actually have a physical effect on people's health and lifespan and mortality rate? So the origins of the race concept, as I mentioned in the first unit, it goes way back to the 15th century when we see explorers and missionaries going out into the world and all of a sudden stumbling upon peoples of different backgrounds in different countries that they had never seen before, who had all kinds of different customs, right? And at that point, instead of differentiating themselves on the basis of skin color, they basically used religion, right? Christians and heathens, for instance, in order to differentiate themselves. There were religious wars, and that was one of the main reasons that countries or regions went to war with one another. So it wasn't necessarily the color of their skin, but it was what they believed. In 1494, a treaty gave all the lands west of Brazil to Spain, right? So basically the Pope said in 1494, all right, if the Spanish go out and they are, exploring on their ships, anything they find out there west of Brazil can be theirs, right? So this explains a lot about sort of the history of colonialism, Spanish colonialism, right? What happened then was that they started finding people in the New World, right, the Americas. By 1551, people were, reporting all kinds of stories about these savages living in the New World. And in 1551, a Spanish court had to make a ruling on whether these savages of the New World were in fact human or not. If they were human, then they would have to be baptized because they needed to be Catholic. And then their souls could be saved. If they weren't human, then they could be treated like animals, which we're not saying that they weren't anyway. But the outcome of that treaty, the outcome of the court case was that they were in fact considered to be human, and there you have the history of sort of conquest and colonization in the name of religion. So we spoke a little bit before in an earlier video about Linnaeus, who decided that he would add humans to his great set of books on the classification of all living things into species. He was the first person to come up with the two-word or dual nomenclature. For instance, Homo sapiens. Homo is our genus, and then sapiens is the species we belong to. This fits into, of course, a very much larger classification system, which I'm sure in 9th grade or some time ago you had to learn. So Linnaeus decides to include different species of humans into races, and I brought out the book so that I could share with you some of the ways that he describes these races of humans, never having actually seen them himself, but this is based on the stories he heard, right? So we've got Homo sapiens americanus, who's red and ill-tempered, subjugated, paints himself with red lines. His hair is black, straight, and thick. His nostrils are wide. I mean, what is this, right? This is Linnaeus sitting at his desk and taking stories from people who were possibly just recently imprisoned on a boat for many months with other prisoners, coming back and reporting stories about the wild people that they saw. Homo sapiens asiaticus was yellow, melancholy, and greedy. Homo sapiens afer was described in this text as black, impassive, and lazy. But of course, Homo sapiens europaeus, which are the Europeans, they are white, serious, and strong. Their hair is blonde and flowing. They are very smart and inventive, right? Et cetera, right? Those who make the rules put themselves at the top. This is where we get our color classifications, which blows my mind, right? That we're still using these same types of color classifications from 1758 and the Linnaean system.